Hi, this is Mrs. Ward, and I'm going to go over the ACT Assignment 6. So first, we're going to start with number 1. It's asking you to look at the transformations of graphing a sine function. The parent function is y is equal to sine of x. So the first thing I have is that it's reflected over the x-axis. So if you remember, here's my x-axis. If I go from here to here, that's going to be a vertical change. So I'm going to have that negative sign that goes outside of the sine of x. So I'm going to write x negative sine of x. Then I have a shift up a units, which means it's also a vertical change, which means that's going to go outside. Remember when we did our trig functions, we usually wrote those up in the front of the function. And then I'm going to shift left x units. So here's my parenthesis because this is what's inside my function. It doesn't mention anything about a horizontal change, so I'm going to leave that the coefficient in front of x is 1, and then left would mean that I add 0.5 remember it's opposite of what you think, and I'm looking for this one, which happens to be choice B. Moving on to the next one. The next one says you have a line that goes through the origin and goes through the point 10, 4, and you have a graph on your paper, but it's down to the side. And you're looking for this angle here, and it wants to find the acute angle between the lines. The positive x-axis is measure theta. What is the value of the tangent of theta? So I'm going to complete this triangle. So when I do that, I will drop down this line. Here's my right angle. This side here along the x-axis will be 10 because that's my movement to the left and right. This will be the 4. It wants the tangent of theta, so the tangent of theta is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. In lowest terms, that'll be 2/5. There's no need to find this hypotenuse because I do not need it for the tangent, so I'm not going to waste my time. My correct choice is the letter D. Number 3, a marble will be randomly selected. The chances of getting a red marble are 5/19. The chances of getting a blue marble are 4/19. What is the probability of seeking a red or a blue marble, which means either one of them will satisfy my condition. Since the denominator is the same, I'm still going to keep the denominator 9, and now either one of these outcomes will be acceptable, so I'm going to add those, and I'm going to have 9/19, which is choice B. A committee will be selected from a group of 12 women and 18 men. The committee will consist of 5 women and 5 men. Which of the following expression gives the number of differences committees that could be selected? So here I can see it on my calculator. The notation is for permutations and combinations. So since it doesn't matter what order I pick the women in or what order I pick the men in, I'm going to use a combination because a combination is when the order doesn't matter. So I'm going to do a combination. There are 12 women that I can choose from, and I'm picking 5. Then for the men, I'm going to also do a combination because it doesn't matter the order the men are selected in. And I'm going to do 18 men that I have to choose from, and I'm choosing 5. I don't actually have to do the work. That will be choice E. If you're not sure which one works, you should know that it's the smaller number, the smaller types of situations. So you could do either one. You could do this on your calculator and maybe this on your calculator. Whichever one's a smaller number will make this one work. Remember, the order matters if you were placing them in for like first, second, or third, or if you were selecting like a president, vice president, and so on and so forth. Okay, going to the next one, number 5. The mean of a set of numbers is 24. And the median of a set of 4 numbers is 38. Can I determine the values for x minus y? Well, I could find x because I could add all these numbers up. I could do 42 plus 3 plus 11 plus 27 plus x, divide that by 5, and get, say my answer is 24, multiply both sides by 5, and I could find out what x is equal to. So that could be done. But when it comes to this one, the median is a number in the middle. So I don't know where y is because I can't assume. It tells me that the median is 38. So when I write these numbers in order, the number in the middle is going to be 38. But since there's 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, that's actually could be the average of 2 numbers. I have no idea how to find Y based on this information. So my choice is going to be choice E. I cannot do this based on the information they gave me. Number 6, Anna and Amy start a landscaping job. When Anna stopped, she had completed 2/5 of the job. When Amy stopped, she had completed 1/3 of the job. Then Reuben completed the rest of the job in 2 hours. Assuming that they all work at the same rate, which of the following values is the closest to the number of hours it would take for one of them to complete the entire job by themselves? So the first thing I'm going to have to figure out is how much of the job these 2 girls got done before Reuben started. So I'm going to say 2/5 x, because x would be my entire job, plus 1/3 x. And when I do that, I have 6x plus 5x, and I put that over my common denominator, 15, and I get 11 15x. So they get 11 15x of the job done. 1 minus that 11 15ths would tell me that Reuben had 14 15ths of the job done. And if it took him 2 hours to do that, then he's doing 2 15ths in each hour per hour, because I divide this by 2. So if it takes, how long would it take each of them to complete? I'm going to take that 15 and divide it by 2 and end up with 7.5. The next club, the Art Club Design Banners. And for the school colors, blue and white. For their fundraiser, each banner required 1/4 of a yard of blue. So blue is 1/4, and white was 3/8. The club originally planned to purchase exactly enough material to make 500 banners, but then found out the material would be cheaper if they bought it in the bulk, which is 10 yards for blue and 12 yards for white. How many extra banners was the club able to make if they purchased enough full bolts to make at least 500 banners? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out how many banners I can make if each one takes, I'm going to figure out how many banners I can make with each bolt. So if I take the 10 yards and divide it by 10 yards and divide it by the 1/4 that I would need for each, I can get 40 banners made with one of these bolts. And so I take the 500 that I want to make, divide it by 40, and when I divide it by 40, I get a decimal, which is going to be, oh, I just had it. I get 12.5, which means I need 12.5 bolts to make exactly 500. Can't buy half a bolt, so I'm going to buy 13 bolts of fabric. So if I buy 13 bolts of fabric, that means 13 bolts gives 10 yards for each bolt. That gives me 130. That gives me 130 yards of fabric. Divide that 130 by the 1/4. And when I do that, I get 520. So I can make 500 banners with the blue fabric. Now I'm going to do the same process for the white. I'm going to take 12 and divide it by 3/8. And when I do that, I will see that I can get 32 banners done with one bolt of this 12 yards. So I'm going to take the 500, divide it by 32, and when I do that, that is also a decimal. That is 15.625. But again, I can't buy that partial bolt, so I'm going to have to buy 16 bolts. If I buy 16 bolts, each has 12 yards of fabric. When I multiply that, I get 192 yards of fabric. 192 yards, divide that by 3/8 that I need for each one. And when I do that, I end up with 512. So buying the whole bolts, I can make 520 out of the white, 512 out of the, 520 out of the blue, 512 out of the white. have to take the lower amount. So I'm only going to get 12 extra bolts by buying 12 extra banners by buying the full bolts. Okay, the next one. Let A be a prime number greater than 10,000 and let X equal the square root of A. Which of the following expressions represents a rational number? Well, a rational number means that it has to be written as a fraction. So when I take the square root, I'm not always a rational number. Just because it's prime means that I'm not going to be able to take the square root. It's not going to be a perfect square. So this one won't work because I'll just be taking a number that's irrational and dividing it by 2. Taking the square root of the square root, that's going to even be worse, so that's not going to help. Taking 2 times an irrational number, not going to help. Taking an irrational number and squaring it, well, yes, if I have x and I square that, and the square root of a and I square that, that means x squared is going to equal a. Well, that would work because that would be the number that I originally started with. So my choice is going to be choice D. Again, just process of elimination on that one. Next one, what is the period of the function? So remember, we just did this. You know, we did y is equal to d plus b sine, oh no, that's an a, sine bx minus c. This b to find our period, we took 2 pi and divided it by b to find our new period. So in this case, that's x over 4. So I'm going to say my b is equal to 1/4. So I'm going to take 2 pi and divide it by 1/4. If I don't like doing that, on my calculator, I'm taking 2 divided by 1/4. Either way, I'm going to get 8 pi. Remember, if you put that in your calculator, you can't put the pi in there. You're just going to have to put the pi back in when you're done. Okay, number 10 was a typo, so sorry about that. So none of these answers happen to work, but I do want to show you how to do it. Area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. So I know my base is 24. I know that this is 1/2. I have to find this height. And the reason why I'm drawing this height here is because I have this angle here, 60 degrees. Using all the trig that I've learned, opposite, hypotenuse. What trig function deals with the opposite and hypotenuse? Well, I'm going to say sine. So I'm going to say the sine of 60 degrees is equal to the opposite, which I'm going to call x, over the hypotenuse, which is 25. You can either get a decimal for that, and when I did this and I multiply both sides by 25, I get the sine of 60 degrees is equal to x. X ends up equaling 21.6506. If I'm doing it in my calculator, I put that number up here, multiply by 24 and 1/2, and my final answer is 259.81. And so it would be square inches squared. And that's how you would do a problem like that. But again, these answers came from a different problem, so the correct answer was not there. Hope this helps. Remember, you will have an ACT quiz on the 5s and the 6s next class, and I will see you next time I'm there.